From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Hello, I'm Mark Horowitz from the Music Division at the Library of Congress, and I'm thrilled to have Randy Newman with me, the songwriter, film composer, performer, and social commentator, I think is. And we're here today to talk mostly about music and composition and your craft and how you do it. So actually to begin, talk to me about your process of, or do you start at the piano, or do the musical ideas come in your head? Do you jot down melodies as you're working?
I start at the piano, and I go in the morning, and with songwriting, I'll work 4 hours and just stay there. Now that's the ideal. I've had problems with work habits in my life. People have had to sit outside the door. I've had to get an office outside the home and go there. But ideally, the thing to do is show up every day and sit there. And what I have usually done is sit at the piano until something that I stumble upon musically elicits some kind of a lyric response, a lyric, something that triggers something. Usually it's a bit of diction, the way someone, since I write in character often, it's the way someone says something, or
So you know what you're
I don't know
what you're writing for, or who the character is?
I don't have a thought in my head, really. And then it'll be something he says, you know, we talk real funny down here, or some little thing with the music, and then sometimes I'll see it where I'm going, just by what the diction is or the syntax might be, and then it happens that way. And then I very rarely have had, 2% of the time, 1% have had a lyric first. I've had musical sort of licks first, most often, but usually it's engendered by a little something that I play that I sing to and I like, and that's it. I've had that change it up recently, just because it worries me to go in with nothing in my head. There have been things that I sort of wanted to write about, and so I've been doing more of that, a little more planning ahead of time.
Just to be clear, a song like It's Money That I Love, did you know that you wanted to write something about an avaricious guy, and you sort of sat at the piano and were trying out vamps that sort of felt like that character? Or you started playing vamps and that gave you the idea for, I should do a song about this would fit that?
It was doing just those vamps, which I've done before, those very same sort of chords, and I believe I just did the Don't Love the Mountains, Don't Love the Sea, and that led to where I was headed, what he might be talking about. It started that way, not with the title. Sometimes it's a very wise thing to do. Some writers I've known, and very successful ones, start with a title, and they'll work their way to it. They know they've got a great one, and they want to get to it. It's a hook, a great title. The guys for the Eagles will have something solid they'll head for. Dylan, you can tell, he's got that last line locked down, so he can wander widely and say what he wants to say. But he'll be locked down for the last line. Bacharach does it musically. My uncle, sort of lovingly, I hope, used to say about Bacharach's tunes that they sound like a third oboe part. And he meant that he didn't like my music, he didn't like anything that happened post 1955.
Your uncle.
In pop music, my Uncle Lionel. And but he meant that that the verses and stuff in Bacharach was idiosyncratic. But when he gets to a hook, he's there. And I personally like what he does before he gets to the hooks. But when he's there, he knows he's there. And that's what, it isn't a bad idea to lock something down like that. I just haven't done it very much myself.
Is it always in your head, or are you writing notes on paper
No,
as you're coming
songs
up with
have been in
things?
my head. I don't write them down really very often. For someone who can do that, I haven't done it. I've had to do it a little more lately because I've been forgetting more.
So when you turn something
I'll
into
put it on tape.
and
is
then
what
somebody
I
else
do.
transcribes it. And
Often, yeah, with songs, not with movie stuff that I do, But with songs, I never have cared about that because, except when I do the arrangements, then I have to pay attention to where I'm singing so I don't bump into myself. But otherwise, no. I've gotten some bad transcriptions too, because of it. It's surprising. I just never have done it much.
When you get the bad transcriptions, can you correct
Yeah,
them? You hear it
I
in
correct
there.
them.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can do
Okay.
it. My stuff's hard to put down, I mean, I can find, it isn't hard for me anymore particularly, but like I say, when I do an arrangement, I sort of have to know what I'm doing so I don't bump into myself as much.
So when you come up with a musical idea and it gives you an idea for a lyric
Mm-hmm.
to start, if it's a simple song, if the tune has a certain character, that suggests a type of character to you? When you write something like Marie, you know what kind of person this is when you get that tune?
It was a slightly different case, Marie. I knew when I wrote Rednecks, I knew I had to explain myself somewhat more. I mean, I didn't exactly, that was the guy who saw Rednecks as a song where Lester Maddox was on television. The audience was rude to him, the audience from New York. Now, Lester Maddox was a bad man in those days and was a horrible segregationist. But the audience in New York acted as if they were great civil libertarians themselves on the Dick Cavett show, and they yelled and screamed and didn't let him speak, didn't let him make a fool of himself, as he would have done. And I thought that were I a citizen of Georgia, I would have been offended. So I wrote the song in the guise of a citizen of Georgia who was offended. And last night I saw Lester Maddox on a TV show, and it goes on. We talk funny down here, and there's a song. But I thought, because of the language in the song, and because of the nature of it, that I needed other stuff. I mean, so I wrote Birmingham, which is not necessarily about him. It's the guy who lives in Alabama. And Birmingham and Marie are the same guy to me.
Right.
So I wanted to write. Marie actually is more connected to Birmingham than Marie, but it was the same idea. I did have an idea for that ahead of time.
Do you think of music as reflecting somebody's character or the emotion of somebody's character? If somebody's angry as opposed to innocent, or I don't know if that makes any sense to
The
you.
emotion.
So it's the emotion of what
For
that
me, it's
person
what
is
it does.
feeling.
It's a funny thing. The other night, for the first time, I wrote a piece for a pianist who specializes in 21st century music. She's played pieces for Boulez and Otis and all of them. And so I wrote a piece that just barely sneaks into the 20th century, to Percy Granger. I wrote a piece about my family. My Uncle Lionel taught Marilyn Monroe to sing, so I did a little thing about that. My Uncle Alfred did a lot of Westerns, so I did a piece like that. And Amo worked with Sonia Henney. I wrote a little Skater's Waltz-like thing. but I forgot what the hell what point I was making by doing this. Oh, and the other pieces, John Williams wrote a piece, and Bruce Sprout, and Michael Giacchino, and somebody else. A couple of the other pieces were 20th century, 21st century pieces, good ones, and mine was tonal, aggressively tonal, and I talked to her after, and she said, it was really nice to have it on the program. Theirs were cerebral kind of pieces, and yours was all kind of heart and soul, as if. And I said, well, wait. I mean, I wanted to say, well, theirs wasn't exactly all cerebral. I mean, you feel when Stravinsky does, the canicles, and when Stravinsky still sounds like Stravinsky when he's doing 12-tone. Schoenberg, you feel him, I don't know whether music is about anything but that. You're not listening for, oh, what an idea that was. You got to feel it, I think. I think, I don't want to get into deep water here with it, but I think it's a problem that music has had. It doesn't happen with the great ones. It doesn't happen really with Schoenberg. But I mean, what I'm saying is that the problems it's had with the audience is that they don't feel it. I don't mean, you don't have to feel it like you feel Puccini, who's a great composer, but you want to feel something. You do with Berg, and people, know that in a while maybe, but I mean, it is heart and soul music, I think, mostly.
You reminded me that I've talked to some composers, and it seems like every young composer sort of wants to show off and show what they can do. And there are several composers that all of a sudden with age, they become simpler, and they write, you don't have to have a seventh chord, you don't have to have a sharp fifth. Sometimes just a fifth is fine, or a chord with 3 notes.
Yeah, maybe that's what. Well, I've always been fairly simple, but I mean, I don't know. It sound like it makes one sound like a dinosaur to say things like that, but it doesn't have to be. It could be 12-tone and have some kind of feel like something.
But do you feel that there's been an evolution in your music, that as you've gotten older, the way you think about music changes and the way you compose changes, that you're freer or more comfortable with yourself and what you do?
I hope so. I think I'm still. I never liked writing very much. Like I said, I've always tried to not do it. I've never really enjoyed it, but I think I'm a little better about that now than I have been. It's not as
enjoying
horrible to
it
me
or
now.
doing
I'm doing more. It's a little easier to make myself write songs now, because movies are so rough, and there's more freedom with songs, and it's difficult because you're writing pop songs, but you want to be age responsive. I'm about to be 70 years old, and what am I gonna? I can't exactly write about, baby, let's go. I'll pick you up in my Woody, I can't write about just anything. I gotta pick my spots.
So many of your songs are about social issues. Mm-hmm. So do you sometimes come at something, I want to do a song that relates to prejudice or inequities in the world or something, and that's...
Sometimes it's just...
So you have goals with your song going in, or is it just that it comes to you as you're actually working on the musical ideas and then the lyrics come?
Well, the amount of songs I've written about race, the racial sort of divide in the country, I would have never dreamed that I would have written so many of them. And I think I'm all done. I mean, my songs have pretty much solved the problem. and I don't have to do it anymore. You know, everyone gets along now. But I mean, they just keep. I keep writing them. I think, you know, there's no point. I mean, I've done it. I've written, but it's always been the big issue for me. The great crime. The biggest issue in the country has always been that. It's becoming, I think, a matter of the inequity of inequity and iniquity also of the rich and poor is a big deal. I mean, a very big deal at the moment. It's hard to imagine that. It interests me that even people who don't have money are not for raising the taxes on the rich. Someone told me recently that's an aspirational thing. They think that someday maybe they'll be rich and they don't want their taxes up there. I don't understand it exactly. But it interests me. I may write about it some kind of way.
You
I
have
do have
written about it.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I've written about it's money that matters. I've written about money, things that I think are very important, like religion and money, sex to some degree.
Are you religious?
Certainly race. No, I'm not. I'm not at all, but I take it very seriously, because it is a serious matter. I just was reading the script, and the guy has the Christ on the cross, about to be, what did Christ say when he first saw the cross? He says, "Oh," and then uses a swear word, and I'm thinking, are you kidding? You know, what are you going to make this movie? But in any case, I'm respectful of it, but I don't believe in it. But it's a tremendous hit, the idea of confession, the idea of love, phenomenal, you know. I can understand why Judaism wasn't a big hit. It's strict, and it's thundering, roaring God, you know, vengeful. Christianity, I mean, with love and I forgive you, and it's awfully nice, you know. And Muhammad, Muslim religion with heaven like that. The idea of heaven is phenomenal to me. I've always been interested in anything about heaven, no matter how badly they do it. The Jack Benny movie, Horn Blows at Midnight, where he's like the 3,030th violinist in the heavenly band. And I love stuff like that.
Well, your latest album is Angels.
Harps and Angels, yeah.
And was that partly because of that?
Yeah, I do. I've done it over. I did Faust, you know, where half of it takes place in heaven. Love it. Geez, I hope I'm wrong about it, you know, and I hope I go there.
There's a phrase that several composers have talked about, that sort of the goal in music writing is to find that fine line between being inevitable and fresh. And listening to a lot of your music, my sense is your melodic lines tend to be very conversational. They're fairly straightforward. They're often diatonic.
Yeah.
Then your chords are much more complicated underneath. But the thing that strikes me as really unique about you is the rhythms of your melodic lines and the where the pauses are and the words that are held, which are so sort of unexpected. And I think they make people pay more attention. And how did that come about? Was that a conscious thing? Is that just...
I don't know. You know, when you... it's like writing for an instrument. The voice I have is sort of a blues kind of voice. I mean, I can't hold a note particularly well. I can't sing like Tony Bennett, particularly. That's not a great example, because I could style things like, you know, perhaps I could. But I mean, it's a voice that kind of shuffles along, that, you know, the type that's natural to me. It's a New Orleans kind of thing. I didn't necessarily pick it up down there, but I loved it from the first time I heard it. And it's my natural mode of expression. When I said I have to break away from it, to play straight eighth notes, is like I have to make myself go da 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 and not that da 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 da, you know, and so I tend to phrase things like that, perhaps, you know, long short, long short.
I swore I wasn't going to bring short people up, but
Yeah.
like in that song, everything comes in on the 2 and the 4. Nothing's sort of on the downbeat, and they're
True.
always.
I don't know why I do. I don't come in on the down. I react to the down a great deal. And you know, no one's ever asked me that, but I noticed it, and I didn't notice it till fairly recently, when someone asked, in a recording studio says, "Well, how come you never just start?" And I said, "I don't know," but. Maybe people like me better if I just jump in there, you know. But
Well, actually, I think it's part
I
of what
don't
makes
really,
you
you know,
makes people
I'm
listen.
reacting to what I'm doing. I think, you know. I don't know why.
Huh.
Have you seen my? Oh, have you seen my? Yeah. 2.
Even your end notes, you usually come in on the and of 4 instead of the, you know, the whatever the
Oh,
last.
I'll push it like, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, there's always that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a peculiar to me a style. I mean, it's not really the shuffle that I do is not. The classical pianist had a tough time playing parts that were a shuffle, you know, da 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 da, like things like that are not exactly a shuffle, and they're not a 12/8. They almost are a 12/8, but not quite.
We haven't talked much about lyric writing. Once you get your musical idea and it gives you sort of an opening line and an entry, do you then do lyric sketches? How do you get your rhyme schemes? How do you sort of figure out what the structure of a song's going to be?
I'll just plow ahead and you know, go ring, sing, ting, thing, and sometimes you make headway and think of things, and it'll all work out for you in a while. I don't even like thinking about it, because sometimes it's like you get these little gifts.
We were looking at some things before, and the Oscar Hammerstein lyric sketches for My
Yes.
Favorite Things. You don't do
that's great.
that kind of work.
I'll do it in my head. Okay. I'll do thing, sing, you know, ring. Then if that nothing's helping, two syllables, and a lot of time that will give direction. If I don't know where I'm going, a word will, like the first time I ever wrote a characteristic song of the style that I was to use was Simon Smith, I believe, and I couldn't stand the lyric I had, which was just Susie, Susie, or something like that. And so I had, may go out, like a coat to wear or something there, and I, you know, started out in bear, dancing bear, and that was it. I would assume I went by bear and did bear, care, dare, you know. And then that was in character, and I never changed. You know, 80% of my songs, easy, 90% are not me in the songs.
So do you come up with language that you wouldn't use vocabulary
Yes.
words that character wouldn't sing?
Absolutely. Crucially, you wouldn't. Sometimes I make mistakes. But you try and get the vocabulary of the person correct. And sometimes they'll know one or two big words.
And sometimes
Which
use
is
them
good.
incorrectly? Or
Sometimes they'll get them right. Sometimes I had one where the guy uses whom, a real dumb guy in dangerous guy in Red Bandana. This ugly little dude whom I didn't know. Yeah, he uses whom right, and he's really, it's a red bandana. It's just
was that a conscious thing, or it
yeah.
just sort of happened?
No, I did it. I mean, it's a conscious thing, yeah.
there are some of your songs that it
Sounds
surprised.
better too.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
In Germany before the war, it starts with the narrator, and then all of a sudden it goes into the mind of the character, and it sort of goes back and forth.
There was a man who owns Toyota. Just a part looking at the, that's him. Yeah, it does.
So you weren't thinking about that. It just happened that way. It wasn't like a conscious thing that this song is going to be divided that way.
No.
You don't.
No, it just went there. Looking at the river, but I'm thinking, I got him there, to the river, and that's what happened. There was nothing more for the narrator to say, I guess. I mean, He's looking at the river, but he's thinking of the sea, whatever that may mean. Some kind of deep thought. It needn't be a strange thought, except coming from this guy. Proved to be.
That's an example of a song where, unless somebody knows what it's about, they'd have no idea what it's about.
No.
And does that suggest that you don't, I don't want to say care about the audience, but
Well, I care tremendously about the audience.
what do you expect them to get from songs where they don't have all the information they need like that? Or
I might have to wait, but I expect them to be interested, maybe musically. And I think it may be a defect in that song. It requires an intro. When I say it, I say this is a song about a child murderer, a murderer, which is cheating. But I don't mind, there's a couple of books that I found to be fantastic, but I kind of hated them for a long time. Like there's the Sound and the Fury and To the Lighthouse, where the first two parts, it's just kind of modern. I mean, not just modern, but you don't know what the hell is going on exactly. And then the third part is like getting hit by a train, where it's like, boom, someone dies, and it's like, it's all just right in your face, like journalism, And the song isn't, it never is quite like that, but I don't mind doing that. I mind a little doing that, not being clear from the top, but not completely. The song feels right. It's all right with me.
I just.
I mean, I like the music in it enough to not regret it in the slightest.
In a case like Baltimore,
Yeah.
it's, I think, 38 measures before people know you're talking about Baltimore.
Yeah,
That's the first
it's a
time.
while, yeah.
But again, it's just how it came out, and it wasn't that you intentionally wanted to make the audience wait to figure out where they are or what they.
It's a little long, but it's obviously it's setting a scene of something, and if it's a bit of a surprise, that's all right, The beat up little seagull always bothered me. I see it, and it's not a pretty picture, Beat up little seagull, but I couldn't do better. I couldn't think anything. I couldn't fix it exactly. But what I liked about, I saw Baltimore from Subway. So I wrote the thing before I ever had been there, as they've told me many times. But I mean, all those marble, and I saw National Geographic about it too. It's kind of fantastic looking. All the eastern cities look real different to me. Providence is different from Boston, and Baltimore is different from everything. And I just, it really interested me, and that's why I did it. And it was kind of beat up looking in parts.
Every once in a while, there's a word or an image in your songs that sort of shocks me in a good way. Mm-hmm. For instance, the phrase "scuff your feet" instead of "scuff your shoes." And did that surprise you? Was that, I don't want to say crafted, or was there sort of a moment of, ooh, that's good? Or,
yeah, I liked it myself. run through the jungle and scuff up your feet. It's sort of
Such an
it's a little
unexpected.
better than other stuff in there. Yeah. But all that stuff is pretty good in there. The buckwheat cake and the watermelon. The whole thing is sing about Jesus and all the cliches. It's bigoted about 4 different ways.
I'd like to talk a little bit about arranging and orchestrating, and for your songs. For most of them, you do the arrangements yourself.
Almost all of them.
Almost all. And when you're actually composing the songs at the piano, at the same time, are you thinking, oh, that would be a good sax part there, or that riff should be that, or is it something that then comes later as you're actually...
Later, and sometimes I'll change the song. On the first album, I changed them radically to put it in a place. A song like Davy the Fat Boy was very different, but I wanted to do that Italian band sound. Because of the family I come from, writing for orchestra was always more important to me than it should have been as a songwriter. So, whereas Carole King would write for strings in an orchestra, do a demo or whatever she was doing, a demo in those days, she'd just get up there and do the strings. To me, it was like a major event when I first did it for this record. So I tore up that song. I didn't make it worse. I like it. I think in some ways it's one of the best things I ever did, which is kind of sad since it was 40-some years ago. Almost 50 years ago now, the arrangement for Davy. But I changed it so I could get that Italian, and it didn't sound like an Italian band either when I got through with it. But I wanted, on the whole album, to be evocative of a place, like a movie. So in Cowboy, I didn't use a piano.
Yeah.
So it would be outside. Linda, you know, there's all kind of weird oboe flutter on there. It was like, you know, I look back and I say, you know, I'm proud of the little fellow who, you know, the young man who did that, even though it's like building a bridge you can't, building a mountain you can't climb. I mean, I couldn't sing Davy particularly the way I wrote it for myself. First time you conduct an orchestra, it's heavy. It's got weight to it. If they're watching you, and they had to watch me because I was the only one there, they slow down. You know, they'll slow you down. And I'm slowing down with them. And so it had to be, I've been, and I couldn't. I might be able to do it now. But basically, it was like, I said this before, but it's really like we never heard the Rolling Stones. Van Dyke and me and Nilsson a little later. And it was very much like a Homo erectus or Homo robustus that didn't become Homo sapien. It was like a branch of music that didn't continue, you know. It was like cheating to use the drum or something. But I'm kind of glad I did it.
How did you, as far as I know, piano is your only instrument.
Mm-hmm.
How did you learn what each instrument could do? And
I studied it, and I always was interested in orchestration. And,
did you become better and better at it as you
I'm
worked with
better
musicians?
I was better at it on the last album than I was than I ever was before as an arranger. But I was pretty good with an orchestra the first time I did it, and the movies, of course. You know, I was doing the scores that helped a lot, and I was Goodwill. I did Toy Story or The Natural and Ragtime, and you got better. I don't know whether I'm still getting better at that, but
There was a quote I heard from you. It was talking about when you had a lot of brass, you needed a lot of strings to soak it up, I think was the phrase you did.
well, you would, yeah.
How do you learn something? Is it just from experience, and when something's played back and recorded, and you realize something's missing there, or
Sometimes, but it's in there. I mean, it's certainly in the scores. I mean, if you look at Wagner, or if you study enough of them.
so do you study scores? I
Yeah.
mean, do you look at
I
other
look at 'em.
people's? You do.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Not enough. There are guys who have done it more. There are guys who I've faked a bit all my life. When guys will say, "Do you know Miaskowski's 23rd Symphony?" And he wrote that many, I think. I'll say, "Oh yeah, I know that." Even less obscure than that, Bruckner's Fifth, which I don't know, which is sort of obscure actually. And I'll say, "Oh yeah, Bruckner's Fifth," but I don't know it. But I'll just say that, and I always have. But there are guys that know the whole orchestrators. They know everything, and I've learned from them too.
What was the relationship like with Van Dyke Parks then? What did you do and he did, and how were things divvied up? Or
He, the way, the reason I've had producers and stuff is that I've never been particularly interested in like basic track sort of stuff.
I thought he also worked as an arranger with you. I'm wrong about
No.
that? Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
I did a thing for him. I did Vine Street. I wrote it for him and arranged that for him. But no, he never arranged anything for me. No. But he's a great musician and enormously helpful about, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And Lenny Waronker's always been solid as a rock for me. Was really, I was pushed in everything I ever did in music, and Lenny did the pushing on quite a number of things. He was my courage for a lot of years. I mean, maybe I was Judy Garland, he was Mickey Rooney. He was the one who was taking me to see Lou Adler, and then we'd go to New York and see Jerry Lieber, and he said, "Why don't you write some songs to start with?" When I was 15, 16. And he was the one with the enthusiasm. It wasn't.
You just remind. I've always been curious.
Wasn't I?
The Lieber and Stoller, Peggy Lee, is
Oh,
that
yeah.
all there is? How in the world did that come about?
I think they heard something I did for some music I did. Maybe it was Ragtime. I can't remember when that was. They heard something I did that maybe they heard Lonely at the Top or something I did that sounded like Kurt Weill to them, and they wanted it. And they didn't have that music. They had no music in the two trumpets. Da, 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 da. I wrote that. I didn't get anything for it, but Jerry Lieber said, I should have given you something, but my partner couldn't do it, so that's all right. But I never thought it would come out after we did it. I didn't think anything of it.
Were you pleasantly surprised?
When it came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't think it was. I didn't think it would be a hit, or I didn't think it would be released. I don't have a great ear for that.
Did Lieber and Stoller have any influence on you?
I thought they were fantastic. I
Okay.
thought Jerry Lieber was. There have been great lyric writers in that kind of music, but there are far fewer than there were pre-'54. There haven't been many Lorenz Harts in pop music, but there's been Chuck Berry, who's. I think I like comedy so much that I appreciate the guys who give you a little of it. There's been Chuck Berry. There's Jerry Lieber. Who's a hell of a. There's Dylan, of course. There's I'm going right by people. There's Prince on occasion and Eminem and Kanye West.
And you've said nice things about Lady Gaga.
Yeah, Lady Gaga. It's not the songwriting. It's the whole thing. It's her fashion stuff is so funny. You know, that people don't exactly get it always. You know, that she's making fun of that, but you'd think they would. You know, she wears a dress. You know, with fake bony shoulders, and you know, what do you think she's doing?
Did Lieber and Stoller mentor you at all, or
No,
it was
he just said, if
they
you come
just-
to New York, you'll be one of the top writers here. And I was 17, 18. I couldn't go to New York. And, but
Did you work with Peggy Lee in the studio on it?
yeah,
Did she?
she did a bunch of my songs
Yeah.
too. And I went to her house and heard her do them. She was nice. But that came about. They must have heard arrangement, and I did.
What happens in the studio? How many takes do you listen to? Do you change things when you listen to the take and you say, this could be better or different, or it needs something here? Or, I mean, do you do things on the fly, changing arrangements literally as you're recording?
Yeah, I will. If I got something wrong with an arrangement, I'm like I say, some of the most important things in pop records are the basic tracks. Obviously, it's what they're made of mostly. And I have been less interested in studio stuff, technique, echo, panning, where the hell things come out of, what a drum sounds like. I'm interested in notes, what notes the guitar is going to play, kind of.
Do you select
I
the
don't-
musicians who are going to be on each date, or?
No, not really. Kind of. Once I hear them, yeah. But the last few Mitchell Froom, last couple of records Mitchell Froom produced, and he kind of selected them. They were fine with me. And the other times it was Lenny and Russ, and I knew the guys, so it was all of us to some degree. I've had good drummers. I like, I notice when they're out of the way, kind of. But, spending, like in the 80s, people would spend a day on a drum sound, they'd be in there till you had a hole in your forehead, looks like they spent that amount of time in their hair, too. I mean, it was an odd, aberrant kind of decade. The synths, it's like disposable kind of things, haircuts. The record I made was an odd record. Born Again. Synth stuff, and it's a picture of me in Kiss makeup, and there's a picture on the desk of the kids with like dollar signs in their eyes. It was after Short People, I realized eventually it presumes that people know who the hell I was. It's just some jerk in Kiss makeup if they don't, I thought it was funny, and there's some good stuff on the record, but it's very strange songs. They're sort of it's too much about show business in a way, more than I like to be. It's like a band, I was making fun of it actually, that has a hit, and then their next record is about being on the road and having had a hit. And that's it, they're done,
How much do you get involved with what the album cover is going to be, what the liner notes are going to be, which order the tracks are going to be, how it's going to be promoted? Is that something you have?
Not much in how it's going to be promoted. I mean, I say, what are they doing? Are they doing enough? To ask my manager. But cover, yeah. Initially I did with the first one. I just wasn't paying attention, and it looks like I look like an insurance man. Then they put another cover up, and they're both, kind of bad. I don't know what I was trying to get across. My dad said I looked like Cement Man. I was standing in the middle of something. But what would I have done? I don't have, it's not like an image or anything I got. I always thought, what I like about performing is that it doesn't feel like it's me and them to me. It feels like we're all I don't know how to say this, and all the same in a way. It's not like I'm the voice. It's not like I'm up here and they're down there. It feels like we're doing the same kind of thing somehow.
Do you prefer performing live and actually connecting with the audience that's there as
I
opposed to being in the
prefer
studio?
performing live to writing. It's a lot easier.
But as opposed
Every-
to doing
always.
something in a studio as
Yeah.
opposed to...
Oh yeah, the studio. What I like best is having written the stuff, and the movie stuff with an orchestra is the best. If I could be left alone, if there weren't a director there, or if there weren't a director there who was intrusive. But even if there is, but the other side of the glass, the time with the orchestra are the best times I have. You know, when the music's working and you hear the music, and you're in a room with these people, you know, who are so good at what they do. Those are the best times I have in my life. And second to that is performing in a way. I get tired of myself, but I never get tired of the audiences. I mean, who wouldn't like that? I mean, and after it, you know, sometimes us young kids, you know, often they're musicians and stuff who are, you know, like my music, and it's, I mean, who wouldn't be nice to those people? I mean, they say, oh, you're so nice. I said, well, you know, who isn't? I mean, why not? You know, and that's why people stay on the road forever. Nobody's applauding at home. You know, what are they going to do? Oil paint? You know, so they stay out there.
My sense is that you are concerned with the program on your records, you know.
Yeah.
How,
Sequence?
so, yeah.
Doesn't matter much anymore, but
Well,
yeah,
that's the question now that
Yeah.
there's iTunes and things like that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Does
Still do it. Still try and give it a sequence, you know.
But you'd prefer that people get the album in experience going from beginning to end as you've...
Prefer it, but you can't stop any of this stuff from happening now. So I mean, we try and do a sequence where you do, you know, you open with this, and then there's this, then there's that. You know,
How do you decide what you're going to do in a live concert?
Fast, slow, fast, slow. You know, it just depends, and I'll feel the audience out if they're shuffling around, and I can't do ballads. If it's a
So you don't plan it in advance?
yes,
at
I do.
all?
I have
Okay.
it written down. Like, you know, I'll start, you know, with. You know, usually it's like it's money that I love, or if it's a softer crowd, if there's kids out there, or if it's a crowd that doesn't know me and might not get anything that rough with cocaine in it and Jesus never done a thing for me. I'll start with, you know, last night I had a dream or something like that. You see who's there. You got to know who's out there, and you hear it. And then adjust.
I haven't gone to
It makes you conservative. It's a conservative act, performing in a way. Something works, you tend to leave it in, like for 30 years. You know?
What do you mean?
If something works,
Okay.
you keep it. I mean,
And you don't
if
get
they
bored with it, or...
No, you don't. Not if they laugh or get quiet.
Speaking of laughing, how much humor there is, and irony, which I think is even harder than humor. Do you know going in that this is going to be a funny song, or does that surprise you at all, or the tone it's going to take and how it's going to... How do you do humor when you're writing?
Well, I do it very often because I think I just like it a great deal. And maybe it was, initially at least, you know you're sort of all right. When someone laughs, I don't think it's the case anymore with me, but I like humor almost more than anything else. And I've done more of it than anyone, you know, any songwriter except Weird Al Yankovic almost, you know. I got a great deal of it. If it's nothing but humor, nothing but a joke, it's a little less worthy, you know, for me. I'd like to do something else with it. You know, a song like My Life is Good, which is about this awful sort of parent visiting a teacher and bragging about his life. And what I like about it is that everyone is reachable. No matter how much you got, some teacher can be talking to you, sitting in a room with you, and you can't leave, you can't buy her off. One can. I mean, no matter what you got, Bill Gates, anybody, and they're telling you, you know, your kid is really a pain in the ass. He's a bully and he's stupid, and you're listening. You can't. There's nothing they can do. And I like the idea that the person's trying to say, my life's good, don't you understand? You know, what are you telling me? I don't understand this. Someone's saying no to them. You know, the only one. Yeah.
People often bring up the same of your most popular songs, you know, the Short Peoples and Sail Away and all of that.
Yeah.
Are there certain songs that are really particularly meaningful to you that you wish people got more, or one of my favorites of your songs is Ghosts, which seems to be, it's just so haunting, and yet are there songs you want people to know more about?
That's nice that you like. I like that song too. I never could, I always tried to fix that song about the line about the gout in that song. I never liked it. And I couldn't think of anything better. And I still can't. I think about it occasionally. Maybe I will again. But that's pretty good about World War II veterans, that song. I like I'm glad that I wrote My Country, because it is the way I grew up. A song called My Country on Bad Love, I think it is. The whole album, Bad Love, is good. I wish people, it always surprises me that critics say that, you know, like 12 songs was the best record I made. I mean, I don't think it's close to being that. I never understood it exactly. I thought maybe Sail Away had the best songs on it. Maybe Bad Love does. I don't know. I'm glad I wrote Potholes, because it's absolutely totally true. Maybe one of the only ones where there's no lies in it or anything.
Does Dixie Flyer have lies in it, or?
Maybe. I don't know whether her relatives came down from there or not.
But not intentionally.
Yeah, I may have taken some liberties with it, but basically we did leave on the train after a week and went down there. And I assume her mother came to the station. But I don't think there was a train called the Dixie Flyer. At least it didn't go from LA to New Orleans. They sure as hell wouldn't have named it after the southern city if it did.
Do you read?
I'm trying to write a song now about the South. Maybe what's good for Mississippi is good for the USA, something like that, like they think. It's so wrong. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm not sure what I'm going to do because I also like the idea of somebody being close to the line where he'll say, do you think my relatives were evil and stupid enough to have died for slavery? The war wasn't about slavery, which it was about that, but he'd say it was about, you know, it was a war of northern aggression. It was about something else. You haven't been wrong enough, but close to the line. That's what I'm interested in doing. But I think maybe it's too hard. Anyway, may not come to anything, but there's something to be said about the fact that this country's still broken up, that it's two countries. It's just not like the rest of the country down there at all. They love football.
Do you read your critics intentionally, or do people just tell you
I don't.
things?
I don't read them. But now it's all in your face. You know, you can listen to yourself so easy. I didn't listen to anything. I never looked back at what I did. But now you got, like, excuse the expression, Spotify, and you know, I could listen to an old record I made, and I never did. But now it's so easy, and you look at what people are saying, and
What are you looking forward to?
me.
Yeah. Are there projects
Moving
that
to
you're
Kauai.
excited? Are there projects that are bubbling? An album that's
Yeah, I'm right. I've got some songs now. I want to write something about the unions disappearing. I've already got a start on it. And about all these companies that are on campuses, you know, they don't like unions because they're going to take care of the people. But they're on campuses, all these, you know, these Silicon Valley companies, and they just wait, you know, in 30, 40 years when they go in there for help.
But musically, anything that you're a challenge that you're a film score that you
No, I don't know. I just hope it's not another cartoon. You know, I'm tired. I mean, it's not like, you know, when someone moves in a cartoon, you got to move. So it's, I want one where, you know, you got Meryl Streep looking up like that, you know, for 2 minutes. And I can just go, dun, womp. You know, something. Someone floating around in space. Out of Africa 2, in a travelogue.
I think we've
Exhausted?
No. But anything you want posterity to know about, how you want to be remembered, what you think your work has.
I wish I'd done more work, but I think the work I've done has been uniquely mine. It isn't like when I started the songwriting, I think it'd probably be what I'm remembered for. I'm proud of a great deal of what I did for movies. You know, for Bug's Life, Natural, and the Toy Stories. And some of the songs for the movies are pretty good, but the songs didn't be remembered probably for the songs on the albums. And it isn't like when I started writing in character to the degree that I do. A lot of people followed me out of the trench, you know, and said, come on, let's all write that way. Hardly anybody did. But I'm glad that I did, because I covered a lot of ground. You get boxed in being bad guys the way I've done, to some extent. I mean, one of the most popular songs, even among my fans that I've written, are straight ballads. It's unbelievable. Feels Like Home. It's like almost the most popular song I've written. And to write that, I had to write it for Faust. Bonnie Raitt sung it, and she sung it to the devil, not meaning it. I'm so backward, there's something so wrong with me that to write a love song, it has to come out in a convoluted way. But it's a funny thing, you know. But no, I'm basically, I can say I'm proud of what I've done. Wish I'd done more of it, but maybe I will.
On behalf of millions, thousands of listeners, I thank you for doing what you've been doing.
Great pleasure. Thank you. I enjoyed this.
Okay.
Yeah.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.